On the way home, would like to acknowledge the original stewards of whose lands this podcast is recorded on. In York Region, we recognize we're on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and that this is the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. In Vancouver, we acknowledge that we are on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, whose presence on these lands continue to this day.
Hey there, On the Way Home fans. It's Michael Braithwaite, your host from Blue Door, with another episode of On the Way Home. We are so fortunate to have amazing people across this country, in our own community, around the world, that are stepping up to the challenges we face around housing, homelessness, health, and meaningful employment. And I say we're so lucky because we have we have choices in this world. We can say, hey, someone should do something about, and wait for someone to do that, or we can step up ourselves. And today's guests that we'll get to have done exactly that. They saw something that in their heads, something needed to be done. It wasn't acceptable, and instead of waiting for something to be done, they took steps forward, which is so cool and so inspirational. And they've had a huge impact so far, and will continue and are looking to have a much bigger impact. Before I get to them, I do want to talk about Blue Door, the organization I work with. Blue Door is an organization that operates mostly up in York Region, which is just above Toronto, in the Greater Toronto area. We do some work into Peel and Durham as well. We work hard to help our most vulnerable across those regions, and we try and help house them. We try and provide them with meaningful and well-paying work. We connect them to doctors and nurses and all the wonderful healthcare professionals that can wrap their services around them, help them with their mental and physical health needs, to keep them housed and get them on a journey to housing. And the frontline heroes that I work with day to day do all that work and more, continued right through the pandemic without missing a beat. As our vulnerable really felt that. We all did, but our most vulnerable even more so, and they kept doing that. And we do this podcast in partnership with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Now, right now, the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, check out their website at caeh.ca to see all the wonderful stuff that they're doing. There is an opportunity for you to become part of the solution too. They have suggested a housing benefit to the federal government, and they're trying to get a lot of signatures on that. They make it really easy for you to do so. Just check that out. Read the report on their site, what they're suggesting. If you think it's a great thing, and I'm telling you it is, it's really going to move the needle on ending homelessness, preventing homelessness. Sign up for it, and then just by putting your information in, automatically in your area will send a letter, a well-written letter to your local MPs, urging them to push through this housing benefit and make it a priority. So they're doing great work. As always, they're moving the national needle on ending and preventing homelessness as well. If you want to become a Built for Zero community, and let me tell you, you do, check out their Built for Zero work as well. And they do all sorts of great stuff. So check out their website moving forward. Hey, we hear a lot of talk about inflation, the cost of housing, that wages and our assistance support programs that we have are not keeping up, of course, with the cost of inflation. They were even, they weren't before inflation shot up, and even more so now, the high cost of food and housing, etc. So more and more we see so many people hurting, so many people without. And like I said before, we sit back and we say to government, you have to do more, and they absolutely do have to do more. But it's not all on the backs of government. Government plays a huge part in preventing and ending homelessness and supporting our most vulnerable, but so does community. And today I have two gentlemen with me that are two community members that saw something they didn't like. They saw something that was wrong. They saw something that was inhumane, and they stepped up and had a unique way of approaching it. They're going to talk more about this, but they literally took that phrase, if it's going to be, it's up to me. They put it into action, or be the change you want to see. They put that into action, and they're keeping that pushing forward. So without further ado, I'm going to have Evan Mintz and Marc Abesdris join me. Marc and Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you so much.
It's an honor to be here.
Awesome to have you guys here. Very inspirational in my mind, and I'm sure our listeners will find that as well. So before we get started and learn more about each of your journeys into the work that you're doing right now, we ask a standard question to all our listeners. Marc, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Evan because it's a personal thing, and that is, what does home mean to you?
So I think, I'd like to talk abstractly about what home means to me. And I think home is really a feeling. It's security. It's, home can be as ethereal as something like a warm smile from a stranger. It can be a hand on your shoulder. Home can be an idea. It can be the idea of comfort, the idea of security. And it can extend far beyond just the reach of four walls and the safety of a structure. I think this is what we're trying to communicate, is to extend the idea of what a home can be, to welcome our neighbors as far away as possible into it.
Thanks for that. Evan, what are your thoughts?
We probably should have coordinated this better. You took some of my answer. I would add probably that home. When I think of home, I think of my mom. She epitomized a lot of the feelings that Marc talked about: the security and safety and comfort. Obviously, there is the physical aspect that, in terms of shelter to a home, that you can't deny. But mostly I believe that everybody deserves that kindness, that support. Whether it's your mom or your dad or family member or a friend. I think that's the biggest part of the concept of home, and my mom is a lot of the reason why I'm doing this, what we're doing. So I think that suffices.
Very cool. And yes, family is home. And both of you, like many of our guests that we've had on, nothing to do with the roof of four walls, right? It's what it represents, as Marc said before. So tell me about the work that you're doing and your journey. You guys want to start? I know 5 years ago, you've been doing this for 5 years, and it's something just kind of hit you and spurred you to take action. Can you walk our listeners into the journey? Maybe we'll start with you, Evan, that you and Marc took into taking action.
Yeah, it started around 5 years ago. Exactly. The idea was percolating. We would hang out, Marc and I, and sort of lament the fact that we work downtown. So we would see, the visible homeless community. And it would be hard because where we once had change or cash on us to be able to give out and get that sort of immediate gratification of helping in a small way, we just didn't have the cash or the change on us anymore. So it felt like years of sort of going back and forth. We even went as far as talking to someone who worked in the space to see if there was a need or if it made sense to even do what we were thinking. And then I guess, like, sort of, you could say the pandemic hit, and that sort of motivated us even further or spurred us on even more. We just decided to just go for it one day. We pooled our resources and purchased some gift cards from Tim Hortons. And the first cards we bought were from Tim Hortons. And we collected about 50 Tim Hortons cards, and we used those in lieu of cash to hand out to the people that we saw while we were in our day-to-day lives. We didn't really think much more of it at the time. We started a GoFundMe page so that maybe if friends had heard about it or family wanted to contribute, they had a way to do it. And then I guess it was maybe a month or maybe a little bit more later, a friend of mine had seen what we were doing, and his name's Brian, is kind enough to write to BlogTO on our behalf. He didn't tell us he was doing it, and we didn't have any idea. And so out of nowhere, BlogTO got in touch with us. It felt like out of nowhere, BlogTO got in touch with us and wanted to do a story. And that story sort of led to many other opportunities. People from all over Canada heard about it. I'm sure even internationally heard about it. And we were fortunate enough to get a lot of donations through GoFundMe. We raised around $15,000 on GoFundMe, and we converted all of that money into gift cards. And that was very, very sort of emotional and gratifying. And it's sort of, I guess, in a lot of ways, a lot of things happen. It feels like out of nowhere, but this truly was not planned and unexpected. And actually, while we were handing out gift cards and doing something on sort of a micro level still, we were contacted by Tim Hortons, who had heard about us, and they actually were kind enough to donate around $25,000 in gift cards to us, or equal to about 2,500 gift cards. That all of a sudden we were flush with gift cards, and we didn't really know what to do with all the gift cards, because it was easy enough to hand out 5, 10, 15, 20 gift cards, but 2,500 gift cards is a whole other universe. And so we were, again, fortunate enough to, through social media and through just like sort of connections that we had, we reached out to a number of shelters and outreach groups and made numerous connections in Vancouver, in Montreal, and Ottawa, all over Ontario, with Blue Door, including with a number of these organizations. And we're able to support with those cards, we were able to support like all sort of everybody in the community who was doing the real work day to day. So that sort of brings us to today.
Evan, let me jump in there. Like, what was the reaction? I could tell you what the reaction from Blue Door would be for sure. What has been the reaction when you call up, or Mark, we'll give you a chance to jump in here too, as you something small scale, like you guys are like, all right, let's do this. And then bit by bit, there's an article Tim Hortons now gives you. You're like, wow, there's two of us or a bunch of us. We can these out. How do we make a greater impact? Let's break the question into two parts here. What was the point where you said, okay, I think it started off as a bit of a one-off. Let's do something good. To this is something bigger, and are we ready to take the next step? Because let's make this clear to our listeners: you guys have day jobs, right? Like this is volunteer. You're doing this on your own time.
Yes, sir.
So
day jobs,
was there that point?
Well, I mean, listen, like, once it kind of took on a life of its own, in terms of, like Evan mentioned, getting Tim Hortons involved, them coming to the table with a large donation, us getting some publicity. We were on breakfast television live with Sid, and all of a sudden we had some really big momentum. And the nice thing that came from this was, we weren't going to be able to facilitate, Evan and I, like we just mentioned, we have day jobs and families. We weren't going to be able to hand out 2,500 cards on our own. And the beautiful thing that came from that was, we had to reach out to outreach programs in the community, shelters in the community. And by doing that, not only did we support them with cards, but we learned a lot more about the needs of that community. It wasn't just that they were going to need Tim Hortons cards, which was amazing. They were going to have access to a warm meal, which was fantastic. But we learned that there was other necessities. There was potentially, young families that needed grocery cards. And there, and so we
clothing cards,
we learned an incredible amount because of sort of the avalanche of donations that came in, which was very valuable to us in what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you went from like, all right, so we have some good intentions, to kind of narrowing those intentions. Say, okay, now that we have let's put these good intentions to what is actually the need out there. You're learning. People are saying, love it, guys, thanks. However, here's kind of what we're hearing from our clients, and you're able to tailor it a bit to that. How far does the reach go? Is this in the GTA? Is it across Canada? Who you working with?
It's all over. We have an outreach group in Vancouver called the Kettle Society. We work with an Ottawa shelter. We work with a few groups in Montreal. Many groups in the GTA. We're constantly looking. I think part of the beauty of this idea is that we can send our cards anywhere for the cost of a stamp. So we're hoping, and we're constantly, sort of waiting and looking for engagement from groups all over Canada. Depending on, it could go even further than that, because there really is no borders. There are no borders to us, and there's no overhead, or like I said, just the cost of a stamp to get the cards out there. The cards they have no fees, so we convert 100% of all the money that comes to us onto the cards. And then, like I said, then we can spread them all over Canada.
Super cool. Let's talk a little bit for both of you. Why, like, there's a million issues out there that you could get involved in, that you could be part of the solution. Why is this so important to you? How did this come about?
I think, when you think of charities and you think of organizations and causes, it occurs to me that it's incredibly easy to rally people for a variety of causes, because people tend to have a connection to those causes, and they're absolutely worthy causes, like cancer and AIDS and etc. But when it comes to homelessness and people experiencing homelessness, there's a different story. And people don't feel connected to that cause. They don't feel an obligation to participate in the betterment of these people's lives. And Evan and I, we wanted to help rewrite the narrative of who these people are, and how we can help them, and how we can really help make a difference in real time in these people's lives. And Ev, do you want to add to that?
I mean, it's pretty good. I do, like, the one thing that sort of occurs to me is the cliche that everyone is sort of a paycheck away of experiencing some form of homelessness or poverty. I think that we sort, like, so that sort of, we feel that as well. But at the same time, I think the part of it, I mean, simply was that it was visible to us. We were downtown. It was a meaningful way for us to help when we had the change and we had the cash. And Mark and I were always, we sort of, maybe something in common between us at the time was that we always gave, and we always had conversations with the people that we gave to, just to see how they were doing, just to, even just to say hello. So it was a cause that was, in some ways close to us, and in other ways far away from us, because, like you said, Michael, we have, we have full-time jobs, and fortunately, we've never experienced homelessness, and nobody in our community, in our close community, had ever experienced homelessness. So it was important to us to spread some awareness to them as well, I would say.
Great. Thanks, guys. I mean, I think both of you bring up a good point too. And in my time in this work, what I felt is, I think there's a lot of goodwill and good intention with Canadians. And I think if you say homelessness, what do you think of? Now, so most people, because they don't want to say the wrong thing, won't answer that. But when I ask that question to grade twos with zero filter, usually they paint a picture. They'll say, like, an old guy with a big beard. They don't realize they're actually describing me, right? Because it's what they see on the streets of downtown Toronto. It's what maybe they've seen on social media, on television, movies, that kind of thing, right? And how big of a problem could it be? It's just downtown, etc. So I think once people wrap, as you guys have as well, right, the learnings, that you've learned is that, like, really looks like the three of us on this call, there is no look. It's this that feeling of helplessness and despair, right? So there's so much to learn about it. And I think once people know, and you're doing that through your education, through this piece, they want to be part of the solution. Here's what I love about gift cards too. I think quite often when it comes to charity, we miss out on that dignified part, that dignity. When people experience homelessness and the shame of not being able to provide housing for themselves and their family, the shame of going to the food bank, and food bank use is like up 200% year over year. And they're seeing more and more people going to the food banks that have full-time jobs, right? So that shame of now, but gift cards carry dignity. There's choice. Number one, you're not prescribing a choice. Hey, man. Well, I mean, it is with a gift card, but you're saying you buy what you want, and there's
Yes.
dignity
And
to it
when you
that
want.
when
Yeah.
you want. No one knows when you're using that card.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it at Blue Door, and there's an example I think in Toronto now of one of them. But instead of a food bank, and brilliant people on the Blue Door team, when we have this competition, on what is the best idea from Frontline to come up with, like, how we solve this. And we get a donor to give us some money. And last year was something called Market Blue, with Rudy and Emmy on our team came up with this. Emily on our team came up with this idea of a grocery store where you just give them a card, right? And there'd be a prescribed amount so you get what you want. No one knows. It looks like a debit card. You just go in, get what you want. Anyone else uses it as a normal grocery card that helps fund the rest of, right? So we've got these, remnants of an idea that we're working through, but it was based on dignity. So I love the fact that you're dignifying this process for both of you who didn't, you're not from this sector. I'm thinking, what has been the biggest learning for you along the way in this process? Maybe Evan, will go to you this time first.
You sort of touched on it earlier. Part of the biggest learning was, when Mark and I sort of came up with this idea, we were consistently discussing this idea. It was based around having, seeing people like the visible homeless community. And when we started to get into it, and we started making connections with shelters and outreach groups, we realized that the problem was much deeper than just the visible community. And then we started to hear about the stats of, tens of thousands of people in the shelter systems and in emergency housing. We realized that I sort of realized that the need was so much more than what we could have ever imagined. Even the money that we put out is kind of a drop in the bucket. So it's, in some ways it's a little disheartening, and in other ways it's motivating, because it's spurring us on to continue this work and to take it even to further levels, so that we can play a part in one day, hopefully realizing in sort of ending homelessness, and even putting a dent in income inequality and poverty as well.
Mark, any thoughts? What is your biggest learning?
Honestly, like Evan mentioned, like we had been givers to that community for a long time. We'd been conscious of the problem downtown, seeing people experiencing homelessness. And it wasn't until we got the gift cards that, we started having, more frequent interactions. Obviously, we were making a point to go serve them. And, these interactions were very, influential, and not just, not in a way, not in an emotional way, because the more we interacted with all these individuals, the more, and listen, we had our own biases about, everyone does. Everyone has some idea of who people experiencing homelessness are. But it wasn't until the frequency of these interactions increased, that you really were hit with the realization that you're handing out gift cards to people just like you. You're staring at yourself sometimes. You're talking to these people. The stories are incredible. The he, and it motivated me even more in a way, to say, wow, like we're there, like the people at risk are so the spectrum is so big of who these people are, and it really brought a sense of motivation, even more of a sense of motivation to tell that story and to find a way to humanize these people, because that's what they deserve. Everyone deserves that tap, that hand on the shoulder, that hug, that embrace, the smile, being treated with decency, being treated with respect. Um, these are things that we can do without money. And sometimes I found that was even more valuable to them than giving them the gift card, was to shake their hand, was to ask them how they're doing, was to put a hand on their shoulder, to let them know that we're here to help, we'll be back. This was extremely influential for me and Evan, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, it's that interaction that you mentioned. Leah Denbach, who is an incredible human being, who
Yes, we've worked with her.
you worked with Leah, yeah, and she's
Mhm.
talked about individuals she takes pictures of, saying, this is proof that I exist, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's proof that I'm here, because sometimes people don't see me, which is heartbreaking, but true, very true, that you don't see the person. Exactly why people, we use the phrase a person experiencing homelessness, because see the person first, man. Like that's a
Yes.
person, that's a dad, uncle, friend, sister, aunt. See the person, and you are definitely seeing the person. Now this is Card for Change is the name of your
Correct. Yes.
organization.
Mhm.
What's next, guys? What's next? I know you got it. Like, hey, we didn't expect this. It's happening. It's growing. What's the plans?
Well, we were currently in the process of applying to be a registered charity. So up until now, we were lucky enough to have a viral GoFundMe, and then some recognition from some larger corporations. But that momentum has tapered off, and it's okay, because in the meantime, we are applying to be a charity. Once we are registered, we will be able to go after, I think, much wider demographic, larger donations from corporations. So we plan on certainly not stopping, and hopefully, and make this a much more meaningful impact across Canada. So watch out, look out for us. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to go knock on doors. We want to go
Yeah.
knock on doors. There's corporations in Canada, that we see as a perfect potential partnership for us, because they fit into what we need to service this community. We need banking. We need developers who build homes. We need telecommunications. We need those kinds of tools for this group. So we have an objective, and we're not shy about going and knocking on those doors and trying to hold those large corporations accountable to that community as well. We need their participation, for this to be as impactful as we think it can be.
Very, very cool. Love it. Love the ambition, and I have no doubt there are big things to come. If people want to be part of the solution, if they want to support, how can they how can they go about that? How can they find out more about you? What are your socials, etc.?
So mostly you can find us on Instagram. That's where we post our pictures and try to tell our story. We're not very social marketing savvy, so it's not going to be the best picture, and we certainly don't. We try not to, put ourselves out there. First of all, we don't take pictures of anybody that we're giving cards to. That's not the direction we want to head in.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on purpose that we're a little bit more low key. But if you want to follow our story, and we hope that you do, that would definitely be the most helpful thing for us at the moment. You can find us on Car for Change on Instagram or on Facebook. And for now, that's probably the best way. We do have a TikTok. I'll say that. We don't do much there just yet, but maybe, who knows? I mean, there's a huge demographic. We recently were contacted by a younger person who wanted to help, who saw what we were doing and wanted to help. So we think there's a huge opportunity there as well to get what is it, Gen Z? I don't know, involved as well. Yeah, that's it. If you want to find us, the best way is on Instagram right now under Card for Change.
All right, very cool, very cool.
Just quickly, Michael, I just want to quickly just to shout out all of the groups that we work with, all of the shelters, all of the outreach programs who are doing the work day in, day out, giving their time, making this community better, making the lives of people experiencing homelessness better. Evan and I always want to be careful about how we present ourselves in this community, because there are people who have dedicated their lives to this well before Evan and I got involved in this. And we want to say thank you to all of these amazing people out there who are doing this daily and making a difference.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Mark. And yes, they are right back at you. Truly grateful that you're making their jobs and their efforts a lot easier in what you do. Let me tell you guys this. I mean, I'm sure you know this, but a large part of people entering into emergency housing or homelessness is just due to income, right? If you look at the Who's Hungry report, so we've had Neil Hetherington on this podcast a number of times. Number one, because he's a great and fascinating person doing great work, but we often talk about their annual Who's Hungry report, and they were talking about the average food bank user has $8 left over after paying for housing, and if you're Black or Indigenous, $6 at the end of the day, which will not get you very far in any city in Canada or any town. So what you're really doing is providing people with alternative forms of income to buy food, get clothing, etc. Outside of that, supplementing that $8 and $6 that will not go far. You're making a huge difference, is what I'm saying. You're being innovative. You're showing people that it can be done, that a couple people can make a big difference and it can snowball. So truly grateful to both of you. I wish you all the best. Let's keep anything that we can do at the podcast here or as a sector to move your work forward. Count on us. And I know even I say to both of you, reach out to me offline if you're ever interested. Before you get your become a charity, there are different ways to apply with the support of a charity to different funding sources to get some more dollars in the door for the work that you do. And I know that Blue Door and many others will be happy to support you in that way to that charitable status, which sometimes takes a bit of a beat, right?
It's a mountain.
Yeah, it takes time, but it will happen. But happy to support with that. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mark, I just want to add one thing because I wanted to get this out there. You asked us, before you let us go, kind of thing. But you asked us, where do we go from here? One of the best things that I heard when we first started was when a few people, specifically one of my colleagues, mentioned that not only was he ready to support us, but he also purchased cards on his own and kept them in his car. And that to me and Mark, that was one of the best things that we heard at the, especially, we'd love the support. Obviously, we're ready to do this and devote all our time to this if need be. Don't tell our employers, but if it's just as simple as buying your own cards and putting them in your car and giving them to people when you see them or whatever, that would also, you don't know us, but that would mean the world to us too. So I just want to get that out there. Thanks, Mike.
Very cool. And you're so right. And it's this cashless society we live in where a lot of people, they have that kind heart. They just don't carry cash. So what do you do?
Mhm.
If you have
Yeah.
those on hand, it's easy just to hand them out when you see it and be part of that solution. So thank you guys. Thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for pushing it forward. So appreciative of the work you do day in and day out to help our most vulnerable. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks,
Appreciate you
Michael.
having us. Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Oh, there you have it, listeners. Two guys are saying, hey, we're going to be the change we want to see in this world, leading by example, and thousands of dollars, right? They started small, um, did some great stuff. People heard of it. It snowballed, and it's turned into so many people benefiting. It's turned into a dignified approach to supporting people. You have two choices in this life. You can choose to put your head in the sand and say that someone should do something about it, or you can choose to become part of the solution. So many ways to do so. We mentioned CAEH and their work on pushing government on a housing benefit. That's huge. That can make a difference. Looking for something a little smaller, but very, very impactful. Do what Evan and Mark are doing. Keep those gift cards in your car. Give them out. Hand them out to people without judgment, without deep thought of what are they going to do with it. Hey, man, it's about kindness. It's kindness to each other. And we can all use a little bit more kindness in our lives. Do that. Or, hey, empower Mark and Evan to do that work. Check them out on Instagram. It is at Card for Change. They are on Facebook too at Card for Change. Be part of the solution. Give to them generously and make an impact. Thanks so much for listening. We so appreciate your support and all of the people in the sector and outside of the sector, what you're doing to prevent and end homelessness. We can do this. It is preventable, and it is something that we can solve. And hopefully you're going to put me out of work. I would love that. Take care, and we'll see you next time on the way home.